Weird science
is the revolution.
Daredevil, Gang War #1. The play is this heat, and it's been something, if you haven't been reading the regular Daredevil book with Matt by Saladin Ahmed, the heat are kind of there. They're this new formed gang that is gang part police officers, a lot of people gathering together to just do bad stuff. They even ended up having Bullseye in the last issue, but they haven't really sunk in with me. In fact, me and you are doing the things, and I said, that's the heat from the Daredevil. And you're like, oh, that was them? I'm like, yeah, it seems to be. And when we get into this, at one point, Elektra, who isn't really in the Matt Daredevil book, which I'm sure that's probably a good thing, you want to focus on Matt in that, but she says in this, oh man, me and Matt have been taking down that old heat. I'm like, have you? Have you been there? I think she's taking a lot of credit for something she wasn't really involved with, but this is Daredevil Gang War #1, Erica Schultz writing, Sergio Davila on pencils, Sean Parsons on inks, and CC De La Cruz colors, and then VC's Clayton Coles on letters. So you end up, I like the art. I think the art's pretty cool. And again, when I say about, hey, we have the two main books, Spider-Man, you end up having Miles, and Spider-Man seems you're going to get a lot of the gangs. We're going to get a lot of Tombstone, stuff like that. So these tie-ins, okay, you can have some fun. Oh my God. And this one, I think, could even be a little more. I'm not going to say everybody out there loves the idea of Elektra being Daredevil, but at this point, why not? Because I was going to say Matt's being Daredevil, but he's having problems himself. But the idea that Elektra's still doing Daredevil stuff is fine. And I don't mind that she's doing it here in a tie-in to this whole gang war, because if you do like Elektra's Daredevil or don't mind it, yeah, you can, get your Elektra action. It's okay. I mean, we're going to save that a lot with these tonight. The idea that this issue, it's not horrible. No. I think Erica Schultz does a good enough job. You said it's pretty much, a competently written comic, but that doesn't mean that it's grabbing me, that I'm like, oh God, because there's 4 issues of this. We're going to have this all the way again till March. I don't know if I was out and about just reading, picking up whatever. I don't know if I would think I need to have this on my pull. I think that this is for completists or also just people who like Elektra or Daredevil, so you end up having, but there's nothing really horrible about it because she's dealing with the heat. She's in Hell's Kitchen. It makes sense. Matt not showing up kind of feels weird, but that's kind of how sometimes these things play out. But you get this narration. I said it's a bit of over narrated, and it's just cringy, that whole play of, Hell's Kitchen's my place, and the night is as dark as this. And you have a lot of that. And it didn't feel quite like, it did, but didn't. It just felt like when you jump into these things, I would like to assume that most people know Elektra that are going to get this. And most people in general, if you're reading Marvel, that it feels like you're stuck between trying to introduce the character to new readers, but also just doing some, Elektra ass kissing, kicking. But by the end, you don't really have enough to do both, and it just kind of feels a little goofy.
It's weird, too, because she's saying this to Spider-Man, and listen, lady, that's Manhattan's my entire space. I know about Hell's Kitchen.
Yeah, and that's the big play about, you don't understand Hell's...
I don't understand? Okay.
I wanted Peter to, time out, listen. I know that we're kind of separating things here, but I'm a New Yorker. Yeah. I have heard of Hell's Kitchen before, and I have teamed up with you and Daredevil
a lot of times.
So please, I know. But again, it's like caught in that space between trying to introduce things to people or trying to get a tone for people who might not know it, but might be a little too much. But really all it is it's overlapping just a big fight issue.
Yeah.
And that's what most of these have been and will continue to be as we go forward in this episode. Most of the stuff going on is, hey, we're going to go to our area and we're going to fight.
You know that because on that issue you're talking about, Miles goes off and does something and Daredevil does something. Now we're seeing what they're doing, basically.
It works out. It might not feel that necessary. It might not feel that crazy over the top, like, oh my God, this makes the event bigger. But at least, and you'll be with me here, there are a lot of events that the tie-ins lessen the event so much, at least it doesn't do that. But I'm telling you right now, after these couple weeks, I'm getting the play that these tie-ins not necessary. Read the main books. I said Miles and Peter. And even if you just read Amazing Spider-Man, I think that you'd get most of the story as well, because that's where the big things are going on. But you end up where Elektra goes off and she's going to check out the heat. She's going to go protect Hell's Kitchen. She ends up running into Lieutenant Scarf, we're going to say his name is.
Yeah, go with that.
He's another guy from this heat that, again, it's a gang of bad guys who are also a lot of cops, bad things going on. They all come together and they're fighting. We saw that in the Daredevil book. The funny thing, and we're going to have another little play tonight, the idea that she takes him down. It's like, hey, Scarf, you better watch yourself. And he goes, hey, what? Just because you know who? Of course she knows who you are. You're not disguised. And she knows she's good enough to have figured out who is what and whatever. But he almost feels like he's like, oh, it doesn't matter if you know me. The heat's going to get you. And then there's just going to be, she's going to take him down. And then suddenly she's attacked by this new villain that shows up. Looks like Red X, it looks to be, in the DC side of thing. And they start fighting. And it's okay. I mean, that's the thing. What you want to have in this, and if you're going to have 4 issues, you have to at least find somebody or something that's going to be able to fight Elektra toe-to-toe. Or what are you going to do for 4 issues? You know what I mean? Like, you have to have some sort of thing. And I'll give Erica Schultz credit. Also shows you that as far as Elektra goes, there's really not that much for her to do in a gang war. So you have to give her something to do for 4 issues. And it's all of a sudden this new assassin that ends up fighting. Oh, my God, looks like adamantium blades. Oh, my God, they can go toe-to-toe with me. And at one point, this new villain distracts Elektra. Then Elektra distracts that while the Scarf is cutting himself out of these ropes that he's tied up from when Elektra took him down. But in the end, you end up having this villain get away, throws down some smoke.
Yeah, the classic throw the smoke bomb and disappear.
And it just disappears. And it's just a weird thing where all this is going. I will say one thing about it at points. I thought that maybe the art, which I do like, it wasn't quite keeping pace with what was going on. And he had a couple weird little mentions of like, hey, where are you going? As this villain, it looks like full out attacking Elektra, like going. They're there. They're attacking you. But I like the design. I like the design of this new villain.
It's a cool look,
interested to see. Also, if anybody out there gets a chance ever to draw Elektra as Daredevil, especially, just remember that at one point they're going to make you have her take off the helmet and her hair's going to go nuts. I mean,
oh my God.
She takes off the mask and how could that hit? Like, that is the mystery of all mysteries. Like, somebody has to figure out where in that there's like a negative space that hair must go to, because it is crazy. And
that hair is amazing.
I mean, seriously, it is cool. I love and again, a lot of people, I hate to say anything about Elektra's Daredevil because a lot of people end up getting so mad. I didn't mind it, though. That was also when I think of when I started losing interest in the Chip Zdarsky deal. It wasn't because of Elektra, though. It was a bunch of other things. But
I would say I love the costume, Daredevil, the look of it. I do not like that scarf that she wears, though. I wish she just got rid of that.
But yeah, the great train robbery is going to happen with that. But there were cool panels and things, though, when she first showed up as Daredevil, and you just have her sitting up on a ledge. And her hair was like 8 feet by 20 million feet. It was crazy. But I like it. I think it's cool. But she's there and like, I got to figure out who this is. And that's going to be her focus right now. Focus on the heat, which is connected, because then she figures out that this villain is part of the heat. So she goes back to her apartment, and then Owlsley shows up. Poor Owlsley just is like, first off, maybe he should knock on the door.
He's like perching in the window.
Right? There's not really a reason that he has to crawl. Like, you could say to me, well, he doesn't want to get hurt. No, you're going to get hurt if you crawl through the window. Like, that's bad, even if you aren't going into Elektra's apartment. If this was just anybody's, he's crawling through the window, so he had to run up all of the fire escape. I just imagine him doing all this nonsense instead of just going in and knocking.
Because she pushes him off the fire escape.
She just destroys him. And then Owlsley must like it, because he doesn't say anything, and she's beating the crap out of him. And I think everybody reading this, nobody's thinking, oh my God, Owlsley was going to sneak in
wants to
and
talk.
stab her. You know he wants to talk. So when he first shows up, I'm telling you, this should be something he's smart enough to be on, like, hey, Elektra, like he's not even showing himself yet. It's Owlsley, but don't attack me, please. And then say whatever. He gets the crap kicked out of him until finally he's like, she realized, she stops and says, oh, you're not fighting back. He's like, yeah, I'm not here to fight. Why didn't you say that right away? Why don't you come with your hands up? He comes in like the creeper.
Yep.
Comes in like Gabe. So then you end up where he's like, oh, man, I just want to give you some info. And she said, why do you want info? And again, it makes sense. I think that Elektra's smart enough to realize, like, in a gang war, though she doesn't seem to understand the full scope, but I think they should. The idea that all these guys, you could end up, go to Lady Yulan and say that Mr. Negative was talking crap. We even saw, Hammerhead do just that. You'll get some of them to tell you something. And that's
Absolutely.
what he's like. He said, oh, all this is going down. And then, by the way, everybody wants to be the king and queen of the hill. Everybody's going for everything. It's not just Hell's Kitchen. It's a city, but there's going to be a shipment, and it involves the heat, and you'll be able to take them out. And he says, I'm a businessman. I'm going to go to the side who I think is going to win. And at this point, I'm looking at the Bumbler. I see the Frost, Pharaoh. I think I'll go with Elektra. And I'm telling you, you can point out all the rest of them. If you have in that equation the Bumbler and the Frostfire, screw that. I'm not going with them. I'm going with Elektra. But he says there is this, shipment coming in. Again, it's a weird way to tie everything in. This is more, again, a gang war where all this, it makes sense. What it is there's going to be, I was going to say weapons. It seems like a weapon might be coming in, but everybody's gearing up. Everybody's getting some things. And this is where Elektra's going to go down to, the whole play at this warehouse. She's going to figure this out when she looks in. And even then before, it's funny because then she goes to Peter to then only say that she's going to do it alone. I think you just have to keep tying things in. Like, I better go check in with old Pete. Hey there, Spider-Man.
And Peter's pretty messed up, too. He's like huffing and puffing.
Oh, yeah, he's having problems.
Costume's all torn.
So that's kind of cool. But she's like, I'm going to go do this. And when she goes, she sees this villain, this assassin she ran into. And it's weird, too, because I'm sure now that I see it, I think somebody's going to be like, oh, you schmucks, we've seen this thing that it reminds me of something. But I think it was like an X-Men thing, but I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. But
Cyclops' mask, maybe the X on it.
Yeah, it's just, maybe it is when he had that X mask. The idea, though, where she's there, this scarf, he got away, but his arms hurt. And in this, there's this weird play where everybody ends up having like a boo-boo, and somebody has to say something. Elektra has a cut from this assassin.
That's a small little cut, too.
And Owlsley keeps going back to him. Oh, you better watch it. So I'm thinking, is that a play? It seems weird to really push that. Is that a play that the dagger of the assassin
he says it's going to get infected,
laced with something to make it something like all of a sudden she's going to get an infection? I don't know. I don't know that I need, oh my God, Elektra's got an infection. Who would have thought? But she goes to this warehouse and looks in and sees that it's this assassin. But she's going to bust in and fight everybody. But you have to wait a second because at that point, you can't even tell what happened to this scarf's arm. And this assassin goes, I'm just going to call them X. X says, hey, I'll help you with that arm. At that point, I'm like, I don't really need help. I mean, I think that the problem is Scarf is, he's a drama king. Yep. He is really going for oh my, nobody knows
going for the
pain
sympathy.
I've been in.
Yeah.
It's not even bleeding. He's covering it up and you don't see anything. It's like, oh man, I'm really hurt. I think also he wants like time off, paid time off.
Oh yeah.
He's going to get workman's comp. And X is like, oh no, I'm going to fix this. This progression is weird. Shoves his hand into this box. They're bringing they're bringing all of these crates in. So when you have that, you have this X yelling, put this in, this will help. Shoves his arm. Now, a guy behind them that is just a schmo. He's just a heat guy. He yells, let him go. But it's weird because at that point, there is a big electric charge. I thought it was the guy behind that we were going to find out it's like Mr. Electric or something. But it's actually the electricity coming out of the box because then out of nowhere, he pulls his arm off and he's Mega Man. Mm-hmm. He's got a huge cannon that's now fused onto his arm. He took it pretty well.
Whether he wants it or not, it's on there.
he's yelling at one point, but that
or
would
Metroid.
probably, and then he goes, whoa, ho, ho, this isn't what I expected. And so all the rest of these guys are standing around and, put the guns down. How many of these you got, lady? And then she says, that's the only one. It's a prototype. And then I'm thinking, well, what's in the other things? I guess just regular guns that they were grabbing.
They all want that stupid gun on
I know.
their arm.
They want to be Mega Man. And then she's like, nope, that's a prototype. But if this weapon proves useful, my employer will provide more. Just imagine then they go, right? And he's like, this is awesome. All these guys are loving it. Like, oh, man, boom, boom, boom. And he's like, I got to go to the bathroom. Oh, no. And he can't wipe his... He's having problems. He's like, I'm looking now. He's like, I'm a lefty when I do. He's like, oh, crap. It's not the stranger that you'd want. It's this gun. Like, I'm telling you, it looks like it's so heavy, too. You know what I mean? That he's just going to fall over. Just imagine him sleeping. And the gun arm, falls over the edge and it flings him out of the bed and shoots himself. You don't want that.
It's going to be a lot of problems.
I need now, there's going to be a mini-series. Just 2 issues. It's just Scarf and his gun arm. All the trials and tribulations that he has with that stupid gun arm.
Like he can't cut steak anymore.
Big Heat softball team? You can't play shortstop now. He's like, but I have a cannon for an arm. But yeah, he's there just looking at it. He seems very impressed. And then, of course, right then, Elektra busts through. So this guy's going to go crazy. Also, this shouldn't affect his shoulder. That is what Elektra said was dislocated. Exactly. And also said that gun that he had, just a regular service, it would throw. This thing, it's going to rip his whole arm off. It's going to be crazy. But what would you give this? It's so ridiculous.
I'd give this one a 7. I mean, I like the art.
I'm going to give it a 7, too.
There's some cool splash pages and stuff.
It was goofy by the end. I wish that I don't know what progression. I wanted more of that arm. But it was weird. She just goes, hey, come here, grabs it, shoves it in the box. And then he's like, yo ho ho, and a bottle of rum with this thing. I'm expecting
this isn't what I expected.
Toot and shoot. What was he expecting?
I don't know.
Shove the arm into a crate. And he goes, this wasn't what I was expecting. All right.
It's like, when you have a garbage disposal and you're like, what would happen if I put my hand in there? It's kind of the same.
I only think of one thing. There's cobras in there, and I'm like Chris Angel.
I'm definitely interested in seeing the next issue, so I'll give it that.
Weird science
is the revolution.